Da-da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-boom-boom, da-da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-boom-boom. The X-Men are the best superheroes. This is not up for debate. And you want to know why the X-Men are the best superheroes? I'll give you 3 good reasons. First is that the X-Men have a huge cast of characters. I mean, look at this. Like, how many characters can you see just on this image alone? And it continues on back. Yeah. Like, there's so many characters, you're pretty much guaranteed to like at least one of them. Even look at the movies. There are so many characters in those movies. I mean, you gotta like at least one. And those movies barely even scratch the surface of how many characters this franchise has. There are a lot of X-Men. A lot. I mean, if you can't find at least one of these characters who you actually like, then you got problems. There are characters who really only comic fans know about, and they have huge fan bases, even though they never appear like in movies or cartoons or anything. They just show up in the comics. Like for example, Pixie, this one right here. She has a lot of fans. You know, she's kind of a cult classic, if you will. Like, there's so many characters who people have never heard of, but they're all great. I love them so much. And like, you got like Mercury and Surge and Cannonball and Prodigy and Elixir and Dust, and they're constantly introducing new characters. Like X-23 was introduced by the cartoon X-Men Evolution, but she was really popular, so they brought her into the comics too. Right now, in Uncanny X-Men and All New X-Men, the ongoings, they're introducing a bunch of new mutants, like people who just became mutants, like Triage and Tempest, and a guy who is really trying hard not to be saddled with the codename Gold Balls. Yeah, Gold Balls. His real name is Fabio. Second reason why the X-Men are the best is that there are so many X-books. Right now, just comics that are currently ongoing, releasing issues month by month. You've got X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, All New X-Men, Cable and X-Force, Wolverine, Savage Wolverine, Uncanny X-Force, Wolverine and the X-Men, Uncanny Avengers, A+X, and probably some more that I'm completely forgetting. There are all these different books, and they all have these different stories going on, and they all have different tones. So you could have like a really, really dark X-Men book, or really dark and gritty and mature. At the same time, it could also be published along this really lighthearted and really fun and really just silly book. So basically, there's something for everyone. And that's why the fact that there are so many of them is actually a bonus, because it means that there is something for everyone. It means that if you don't like the X-Men in this one story, then you might like them in this other story. Like, for example, Grant Morrison's New X-Men. This is a really popular run, was Grant Morrison's New X-Men. But there are still people who dislike it, and, you know, that's fine. No accounting for taste. But maybe, say, Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men will be more to their liking. Or perhaps they would prefer the classic tales by Chris Claremont and his incredibly long and legendary run on the book. Or maybe they really like the 90s era and Rob Liefeld and his X-Force. I don't know why they would like that, but okay. Basically, the X-Men achieve greatness in diversity, and when you consider what one of the big themes of the X-Men is about, then that's actually really appropriate. Which brings me to my third point, which is that the reason that the X-Men are the best superheroes is because it would be so easy for them to be villains. Think about it. The X-Men protecting the world that hates and fears them. People in the X-Men universe hate mutants. By this point, Mutants have been used to represent pretty much every minority group ever. So there's a lot of prejudice against mutants, and that's one of the big themes in X-Men, is that this anti-mutant prejudice, it would be so easy for them to just turn their back on humanity. Because humanity's made it clear that they don't want them here. It would be so easy for them to turn against these people that they're trying to protect. It would be so easy for them to just go, you know what, Magneto was right, and start this mutant supremacy campaign and stuff. It would be so easy. And the people that they're trying to protect, these civilians, with all their hatred, make it easy. But the X-Men were faced with a choice, and they chose to be the better man. They chose to take the high road. They chose to be protectors and not destroyers. And yeah, pretty much every superhero has the power to destroy, and they chose to use it to protect instead. But with the X-Men, they have every possible reason to want to destroy. The deck is completely stacked against them, and they choose to protect anyway. How noble is that? One of my favorite X-Men stories is God Loves, Man Kills. I believe it was 4 issues, and the villain in it was not like this costumed, cackling supervillain with a death lair or anything like that. The villain of God Loves, Man Kills is a televangelist. He's a reverend who uses his position to preach hatred and uses it to encourage violence against mutants. He's a very real villain. And yes, he does have a supervillain plan to eliminate all mutants, and yeah, that is kind of odd, but overall, he still feels like a real person. And you look at him, and you look at people on the news and stuff, and pundits and talking heads, and just the hatred and bile they spew out, and Reverend William Stryker is basically that. And what really makes God Loves, Man Kills, in my mind, just one of the best X-Men stories, is that the ultimate victory against this man is not done in the typical superhero fashion. They do not beat up the villain and call it a day. They don't even raise a finger against the villain himself. They do against his minions, but the minions are trying to kill him, so, you know, self-defense. But against Stryker himself, they never lift a finger. Their victory over him is a moral victory. It's a peaceful victory. And that's what really makes it so powerful. The X-Men have always been one of the more diverse superhero teams. Storm was not the first, but she was one of the first major prominent black superheroes. And the X-Men were one of the first teams where the gender ratio between male and female wasn't like heavily on the male side and stuff. They're a very diverse team, and that's good because it helps with the message of inclusion and diversity that the series has. I mean, the X-Men are really inspirational in a way that a lot of superheroes are not. Like, yeah, you can look at Superman or Captain America and say, I want to aspire to be that guy. But with the X-Men, you see their struggles, and you see that these are people who have made a lot of really bad mistakes in their past. And trust me, they have made some huge mistakes and done some awful things, but they always try to better themselves, and they always try to be heroes. It's always tossed around, you know, the X-Men protecting a world that hates and fears them. And when you get right down to it, yeah, the world does hate and fear them, and they protect it anyway. And that is why the X-Men are hands down the best superheroes. Thank you.